It is 2:30 on December 4th with an unseasonably warm 12-degree day outside. And if you will recall the reasoning behind me not painting this thing, it was exactly because I knew that we would have more and more days like this until snow decides to be on the ground permanently for who knows however many months. I am currently internally celebrating that decision much more fierce than I'm showing right now. Definitely not your typical use of a good December day for mountain biking, but like it gets dark so early that it's really tough to want to go do any sort of driving to go ride your mountain bike. So we're playing around on a undisclosed jump area that's in the HRM area.
All made of gravel, is it? It's all packed so nicely.
Yeah, this looks better than it did when I was here riding my BMX. Like, it looks like someone's done some work.
Somebody's put a lot of work in.
Like this jump used to have like a little, while I was waiting for Dan, what I really wanted to do was 3 that. And then when he got here, I did it, but I didn't record it. Back when I first got this bike, the #1 thing I said I wanted to do was 360 it. That was forever ago. And today I finally did it.
Yeah, not so bad. Not that bad.
I think I could do it a little bit. It's funny how you just do it once and then it doesn't feel so big. And I feel like if I rode my BMX, I'd probably do a 540.
Yeah, you'd have to spin now with all that extra length and tire size.
Ooh.
The battle was far from over.
You may be wondering why Dan is able to make as many appearances as he does in recent vlogs. Well, we both worked on the same show. Dan is a veteran of the film set world, not working right now. And this is my job, so we get together every so often. Not to mention, we're both like, I don't want to say BMXers who have stopped BMXing because that makes me feel bad, but definitely it influences the riding a little bit. Do you want to try again? The light right now is full.
Give it a try, see if that looks any good.
Oh. This might not be the most extravagant way to spend 2 hours mountain biking, but it's the right way to spend 2 hours mountain biking with the light you have. Well, I have just gotta say, I am delighted with the result of attempting a 360 on this thing. I really kind of never thought that that would happen. I know for a lot of you who watch this channel, tricks and stuff like that, well, you could really care less about, but it was my life. It still is kind of my life. It matters to me. But I think that was probably like the perfect last ride for the non-offset bushings in the shock, and I'm going to put them in right now. So the reason I say I think today's ride was like the perfect last ride with this geometry, what we have right here right now, is because it was such a throw around, like heavy handling, like to be throwing a bike around in like fairly tight areas and hitting hips, trying to do tables and 360ing things. You have to be like relatively comfortable and confident in how you know a bike is going to handle, how it's going to respond to any inputs that you put into it. And when you're throwing around bikes like their BMXs, you tend to be like fairly in tune with the bike that's underneath you. I really know how it handles the way it's set up now, and that we're about to change the head tube angle as far as offset bushing says, upwards of 1.5 degrees. We're gonna lower the bottom bracket by about 6 or 8 millimeters. Ultimately, I imagine the head tube angle is probably going to change closer to 1 degree with the 6 to 8-ish millimeter drop. So our numbers with this bike now are going to be, well, they're just going to be kind of hard to know for sure. All we can do is like know how it feels. So I'm sort of making an assumption here that everybody knows what an offset bushing does, but here's a crash course on the subject. So this shock, middle of eye to middle of eye here, is 200 millimeters long. Each of these bushings at their eye are drilled perfectly in the center of the bushing. Now, what happens with an offset bushing is the hole is drilled offset from the center, and when you put them in closer together on the shock, effectively shortening your shock without affecting stroke. With the effectively shorter shock, the entire rear end of the bike rides a little lower. That is, the bottom bracket rides a little bit lower, and it affects the seat tube angle slightly and the head tube angle, slackening out the head tube angle, lowering your bottom bracket, slackening out your seat tube a little bit. Now these a lot of times will just push out. If they don't, you can try the socket in socket and hammer trick. I'm hoping I don't have to do that, but I might have to. See, this one comes out pretty easy. And I've just got a small enough socket here to be able to push the rest of it out. There we go. Watch that just fly out. Didn't lose it. So there's the new DU bushings that can go into the shock. I'm not using those today, but it is nice to have them. And here are the new machined brass offset bushings. You can get these from all kinds of companies. Offsetbushings.com was kind of cool because all I did was enter the bike's make, model, and year, and then the shock's make, model, and year. I didn't need to give them any measurements. I didn't need to give them anything. And it looks like we're right where we should be based on the old bushings. So obviously you want to put these in with the hole pointed down, and then on the bottom you want it at the hole pointing up. That obviously is going to be the thing that gives you the desired effect. Okay, effectively shorter shock going in. There's no way that 6 millimeters lower has like, it doesn't look different, right? Because I gotta admit, I was like fairly cynical when I ordered these bushings. I ordered it purely out of wanting to make this more modern, not because I thought it would work. I'm real excited to see the before and after because I think this is in my head. There's no way. Wow. Maybe it does make a noticeable difference. So our very quick, dirty, behind the napkin math says that with our slightly longer fork and our offset bushings, our outcome of geometry is probably going to be somewhere around the neighborhood of 66-degree head tube angle and I'm going to go ahead and say probably still a -10, maybe -8 millimeter bottom bracket drop. Still wildly and unheard of high by today's standards. This bike originally comes with a -15 millimeter bottom bracket drop. That is like CN Tower tall. Which, to be honest, is not something that ever really bothered me. I've always been used to it, and I've always been used to like relatively high versus axle height bottom brackets from BMX. So like that handling characteristic is very, very familiar to me. As a matter of fact, I kind of like it. I remember riding Meg's high tower. Of course, the sag wasn't set right, but I just like hated having a bottom bracket so low that even on off cambers, going around corners on the road, you're like hitting your pedal all the time. This thing, that doesn't really happen. And I understand that with the bigger wheels, the bottom bracket is even higher off of the ground, but it's not higher in relation to the axle line. That's the difference between bottom bracket drop and bottom bracket height. Bottom bracket drop is what affects geometry and the way the bike handles. Bottom bracket height is just how high it is measured off the ground. So arguably, and I know I've opened a can of worms, the wheel size didn't affect the way the bike handles, but the offset bushings will. How will they? Well, I don't know. It's really dark out and late now. To my eyes right now, it actually looks like it's changed. Sitting on it, it maybe feels a little bit different. Maybe I'm just rationalizing, but we won't know until tomorrow. Right now, there's some nog and rum inside that I need to go make sure isn't poison before someone else drinks it. With any luck, we'll go play with this thing on a trail this weekend and just see what the difference is like.